Hello, welcome to another wonderful Wednesday webinar, and we're here with Ray from Torbay Climate Action, and she's going to tell us about carbon literacy, and she's a carbon literacy trainer, I think, and getting us more aware about carbon literacy in general. Fantastic. Ray, over to you. Thank you very much for coming and sharing the knowledge. Over.
Hello, hi. Thank you so much, Phoenix and everybody. I have not loads and loads of slides, definitely not death by PowerPoint, but I also don't seem to use Zoom that often, clearly. And so I actually am looking to how I can share my screen, and I can't see how to do that. So if it's a very quick thing, Phoenix, do let me know. If not, I'm not going to wait silently and make everyone stare at my awkward face while I try and work it out. So if we can get it up really quickly, great. If not, I can just talk.
Don't worry, we're usually fairly friendly crowd. Yeah, if you share your screen down the bottom and then click on the one on your computer that's
Yeah, it's not giving me a share screen. Am I? Oh, hang on. Do you know what? I literally live on Google Meet all day, every day. And so anything that isn't Google Meet is then like freaks me out, obviously. Okay, what can I share? Is it going to do it?
Yep, started screen sharing.
Fingers crossed.
Yep.
But I need that to move out of my way because I can't see where I actually flipping act. Right, okay. How's about that? Okay.
Fantastic.
And then it's telling me I'm screen sharing. Yes, that's fine. Okay. So sorry, I don't know if that is actually in the middle of the screen. There's something really in my screen, but if you can see it, then that is fine. Can you see this slide that has the QR code? Okay, great. Wow, I'm a professional presenter, would you believe? No, and it's fine to say that. Hi, I'm Ray, and I work in climate change awareness and engagement as a day job, and because I hadn't had enough of that over the years, I also do it in my spare time, or what time there is, as part of Torbay Climate Action. So Torbay Climate Action is a CIC, community interest company, and we have been in Torbay, which is South Devon. We've been knocking around for quite a while. I'm going to be honest, since like 2018, there were a few people that got together in an abandoned shop in Paignton in South Devon in Torbay, and decided to sort of get together reasonably regularly to see what we might be able to do when it comes to us trying to spread the word, I suppose, in our local area. And then we were just about starting to get a little bit of traction with doing some repair cafes in our local library, sort of putting the feelers out, getting our relationship built up with the local council, etc. And then along came COVID, as we know, and everything that brought. We also had a bereavement within one of the founding members passed away during the COVID lockdowns as well from an illness. And so we were shook, basically. It took us quite a while to find our feet again. And then in 2021, I think, is when we incorporated as a CIC. And then just last year, we aligned with the Climate Emergency Centres network when I met Phoenix at an event to do with my day job. So here I am. That's the very, very short story. If you are interested in knowing any more, you can just look us up online, or you can scan this fancy QR code if you like to go to our very rudimentary website. But it'll give you a little bit more information about what we're up to. Maybe if you're just starting out on your CEC journey and you would want some ideas of what different groups offer, it can be helpful to have a little look at the website. And at any point, we would love you to get in touch for networking, ideas sharing, or requesting any sort of alignment and support, and you can get through to us on the email address that is shown here. So that's a very, very brief overview of TCA, as we call it. We have a physical premises that we procured last year, and it's a private tenancy rental, but it's in an area that is relatively low rent, and we have funding from Awards for All through the National Lottery to be able to pay rent and rates on this building for a couple of years. And so all the stuff that we were doing, little tendrils out here, there and everywhere, and just attending various different things, we were thinking, what is our main offering going to be now that we have this premises that is our little hub? And that's when we landed on carbon literacy training. So I don't know, maybe as like a way, or if I can move on to here, as a way of finding out, I don't know, I'll look in the chat box, but do people already have any awareness of carbon literacy training? Has anybody already done their carbon literacy training, or are there any carbon literacy facilitators in the room? Do like let people know in the chat. I'm technically a carbon literacy facilitator. The semantics are really important, I believe, Phoenix. I am not a carbon literacy trainer. That is a different level of qualification. So I'm like, I'd love to be, but just to set the record straight, I'm not yet. Watch this space. Okay. So let me move on if it will allow me. Oh my goodness, this is really, my screen is not having a good time of it today. Carbon literacy, what is it? So the quote from the Carbon Literacy Project, which is the leading and accrediting body, which started in Manchester and is now global, worldwide, which is a nice, cool Northern English export that's really lovely to be aligned with. The Carbon Literacy's quote about itself is that carbon literacy is an awareness of the carbon costs and impacts of everyday activities and the ability and motivation to reduce emissions on an individual, community and organisational basis. And so what that means in plain language is that you undertake an intensive course of awareness around carbon emissions and their effects on climate change. The course is around 8 hours. It has to be a minimum of 8 hours to be certified. And once you've completed it and sent off your evidence-based form to the Carbon Literacy Project, they then say, yes, this person has met the criteria. They clearly understand what has been shared with them throughout the training, and now they can get their individual certificate in carbon literacy. So we are the training group. We are the middle person or the middle group between the Carbon Literacy Project and you or any of us as individual learners. And so we're the training body, but then the CLP is the certifying body, and we have to send off forms to them to get our learners' certificates released, and then we can send it to them. So any group here that is a CEC or any group that's interested in becoming a carbon literacy training organisation just really needs to do their initial carbon literacy training and become carbon literate as citizens themselves. And then they have the option to run it for their community or for different organisations. And there are two options. You can either run a standard toolkit, as it's called, so a standard training course that has been written for the particular sector or group of people that you're wanting to train, or you can write your own. So I wrote the one for TCA, and we paid a nominal fee, a couple of £100 for the CLP to accredit that course and say, yeah, you know what you're talking about, enough, off you go. And now we deliver that to members of our local community for free at the moment because we've got some funding, which is really nice. What else can I tell you very, very quickly? That's probably enough now, actually. So if I move on to this slide, I can't believe how much trouble I'm having with the slides. This is a lovely collage that the CLP have on their website and their social media. at any time, at any point in time, you can go online and find out their most updated statistics. And it's always in this lovely, nice sort of montage, this lovely collage here. And it just gives you an overall idea of how widespread carbon literacy project training is, and what you may well be part of if you become a carbon literate certified person or one of the training organisations. And what's really, really lovely is that you can see that there are more and more, this statistic right in the middle that says 674 with a flip chart next to it. This is how many different courses there are that, like the ones I wrote, or like we've got with TCA, that are available for different people to use as inspiration and to build their own from. So they're all slightly different. They're all slightly tailored depending on who you're speaking to, whether it's in a professional capacity, whether it's part of a faith group, for example, maybe for younger learners specifically, or for a specific demographic, specific geographical location. It keeps a nice tally at the top left. You can see over 88,000 citizens have been certified. So it's gaining quite a lot of traction. Just for perspective, when we started doing CLP training, I think that number was around the 65,000. So that was like a year or so ago. So it is starting to really take off, which is really, really lovely. The nice thing about it that I found as a facilitator is that it helped us to give our work a little bit of direction. So we, like I mentioned earlier on, we started doing some little light touch things like social events, different conferences. Oh,
Gonna mute someone. Carry on.
Thank you. Doing clothes swaps, blah, blah, blah. And whilst things were okay, we felt like we didn't have our raison d'etre. We didn't really know like what we existed for specifically until I told my the co-director, David, that I had done this course through my day job in 2019, and I actually gained a lot from it. And I was really interested in becoming a facilitator. And could we do that through the lens of TCA? David then did his full day course and really enjoyed it and was like, yes, let's make this our offering to our community. So it rang a bell with us, and that's when the whole process of writing the course and getting it accredited started. And even though at the moment we don't make money from it, we could. So for example, in the future, our ideal is to go to different organizations, such as corporate organizations, the council, educational institutions, and be able to offer a slightly tailored version to that demographic course that then we could charge a nominal fee for, and that would help us in our social enterprise status to self-sustain. So that's the the future. So far we've run four courses, I think, and we've probably had 45 to 50 people all together. We do nice sort of like small intimate groups of between probably 6 to 12 people at a time, which is really nice. And that is probably the overarching. Phoenix, is there anything glaringly obvious that I've missed where you're like, you haven't even mentioned like
Well,
what this is?
It just so it's a day-long course. How long does that last? So many hours. I think there's a question there from Anne about, is it only certified and being delivered in the UK? And is there a cost, was one question I had.
Beautiful.
As a facilitator.
Great, thank you. No, as you can see from this collage, 26 nations are delivering it now. So started off in the UK, in Manchester, as I said, which is wonderful. And now it is across 26 different countries. So if you are, wherever you are in the world, if you are interested in doing this, then do it. There are two options, I suppose. You can either find out whether there's an organisation already in your area that's offering it so that you can align with them, or you can start it. There wasn't any group in and around Torbay, even the very prolific Totnes Climate Hub, who we are friends with, isn't currently offering this. And they offer loads of stuff. So we really found like a little niche here for this. So yes, it doesn't have to just be UK based. And Phoenix, to answer your other questions, I mentioned about cost as well. It depends on the organisation. You can expect to pay up to about £200 per place for this. We have funding, and you'll often find that community based courses where anybody can drop in will be cheaper than if you go to an organisation as a business or as an organisation, a fellow organisation, and say we would like X number of people trained. That's more likely going to incur a cost, and it will depend on who. If you come to TCA, the cost would be different than if you went to Speak Carbon, for example, or if you go to a different training group around the world. So it's on a case-by-case basis, it seems. And hours-wise, it needs to be a minimum of 8. However, this can be run, some teaching organisations do it where they'll do a part of it online and then they'll do a part of it in person. Some do it in person over 2 or 3 nights within the week. We currently run it on a full Saturday, and that is for 2 reasons. A, that's the only capacity that myself and my co-trainer have to be able to offer, unfortunately, because we're both working full-time and doing lots of other things. And secondly, it's a bit of a calculated decision because the flow, the narrative that is given within the training course, which is very much a journey through human-induced carbon emissions, how they relate to overall climate change, how this is affecting us now and in the near future, and what we can do about it. It's a very organic, it's an organic journey, and I do not feel comfortable delivering the first part of that journey to people and then saying, okay, we're going to finish for the night and we'll see you next week, or we'll see you in a few days, because it's quite hard hitting, isn't it, when you learn these things at the beginning and you learn about just how screwy a lot of things are from human action. So I don't feel like I would want to leave my community members hanging around waiting and feeling awful for 24 hours or more afterwards. However, we are looking at more creative ways of doing it. So can we create some videos and share some content before the session that accounts for maybe 1 hour, so that when we're all together, we can reduce that to 7 hours, etc., etc. Also, if anyone's involved in delivering this and has ideas, please get in touch with us, because we really want to hear from fellow facilitators on how they handle it. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the course? Do you, go into what's causing carbon, how people can reduce it, what it involves a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So the course, the Carbon Literacy Project give you a criteria checker. So when you want to become a training organisation, you have to adhere to this certain framework. And within that, once you hit that framework, you've then got a lot of leeway to introduce your own different activities and the way you want to deliver it. So the progression that you need to do, and like the criteria, is that you have to, a bit like I mentioned just before, you have to set the scene and share some very science factual based information about carbon emissions, what that is, the fact that it isn't just carbon emissions. For example, we've got the 6 major greenhouse gases, how that is causing global warming, what the term global warming means, etc. So you're just doing the jargon busting at the beginning and really setting the tone, and assuming that people have very little to no current knowledge, which is really ideal. And then we go on to look at, okay, if that's what's happening, why is this happening? What is it that we're doing? And this is where it really aligns with, if anyone's done climate fresque workshops, they are very, very, Carbon Literacy Project is like the heavier, older sibling of a climate fresque 3-hour workshop. They're both very complementary and lovely. But this is maybe the slightly more academic version. And then you're looking at discovering the different ways in which we are causing these emissions, And so if I've got, is it going to work? This is the excitement. Hey, there's just a few shots from some of our training here, but it's varied and interactive learning styles. So we have there is some presentation slides, of course, but we've got lots of videos, discussion, personal reflection time around how these emissions are being created. And then there is the whole certification element hangs on each individual learner presenting their personal pledge at the end of the session. So we build in time for people to be able to synthesize everything that they've been learning, watching, talking about. And then they need to come up with 2 pledges. One of them is a personal individual action. For example, I'm going to change my bank from one of the big top 4 or 5 fossil fuels weapons dealing polluters, and I'm going to move it to a different bank, or I'm going to move my pension or my savings. And the other pledge is a part of a group. What are you going to do as part of a group that you have influence in? So that could be your work, a volunteer group, your faith group, your community, etc. So for example, when I did mine in 2019, my group pledge was that I was going to become a carbon literacy facilitator and take this to a wider community. So that's quite a sort of a big, and has the potential to far reach and scale up. And then the individual, I can't even remember what my individual pledge was, but it was probably something about moving banks or changing to green energy. So we moved to ecotricity after that. That was it. So it's very much, it's quite detailed, but it is only carbon emissions. So I'm just preempting a question here. It does not talk about the biodiversity crisis. It gives a nod to it, but it's specifically the science around carbon and therefore carbon equivalent greenhouse gas emissions, so that you feel at the end of it, hopefully a bit more empowered to make educated decisions about how you are consuming and behaving in your own life, but also inspired enough to realize that it isn't just you that needs to change everything. How can you be an agent of change at scale? So how can you maybe engage your political representatives, or the brands that you buy from, or the people you bank with? And let's face it, the people that actually have the responsibility on their hands to change their ways. So yeah, carbon focused. I've talked a lot. Please give me some more questions.
There's a few questions in the chat, or anyone who wants to ask a question or give some feedback. That's really great, Ray. It's fantastic. It's something we've all...
It's hard to, it's hard to say just a little bit and then let people ask questions, rather than just being like, this is all the information. It's good to just give people a little taster and then find out what people want to know, really.
Okay, so let's open up to the floor then. There's a little reactions button down the bottom. You can raise your hand like that, and we can see sometimes who's put their hand up. If you've got a question, well, we're on the big screen. I can't see people wave their hands much. There we go. Sean Worthing, first off the buzzer, University Challenge Worthing. Over.
Hi, Ray. Thanks for that. Where did you go to for your initial 8 hours then? Did you go to the Carbon Literacy Trust or?
Oh, that's a good question. I can't remember exactly which organisation we found. Nicola, who was our trainer, I was put onto this by a colleague of mine who'd done the course in Manchester, and they said, we think this would be right up your street. Maybe some people at head office should do this. And I was like, yeah, you're right. We should. And so 20 of us got together. I think I probably did contact the Carbon Literacy Project directly, and then we got delivered one of the corporate courses where a trainer came down to us at head office for the day, and then we did our course that way. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. So that's quite an expensive way. If you do it just an individual doing it, then you'd go somewhere else.
Yes, yeah, there'll be different there are different groups around the country, such as TCA, that will say, we've got it running on this date, here's the Eventbrite link, you can book yourself on, and that will be a much more affordable, if not free. Lots of groups have funding or can subsidize. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.
We've got Tim, then Anne, and I think Jules had a question somewhere. Tim?
Yeah, hi Ray. Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, I've heard a little bit about it. I know one of our councillors in the district council is very keen to get the councillors and a lot of parish councils, I'm in Lincolnshire, involved in this training as well. And as you say, different trainers are really geared up for different types of people they're training. Is that the way it works, or
Yes.
is it? Yeah. I mean, the other question would be, I mean, at the moment, does it work best in person? Can you do it as a Zoom? Are there options that, to do it online?
Yeah, brilliant. There are, not through TCA, unfortunately, and this is something we'd like to look into, because then we can widen our reach. And I could be saying to you right now, yeah, we can do it online and you don't need to be with me, and book onto our course and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. That's the ideal. I do think they work, and lots of people think these things work better in real life, because we can have, it allows for organic conversation and much more interaction, rather than doing breakout rooms and things that still, even with all of the technology, people, they just don't quite gel nicely. However, there are groups that will do it online to make it accessible. I suppose if you're not physically near anywhere, then you shouldn't miss out because of that. So you definitely can find online courses. You can use the Carbon Literacy Project website as like the main portal, and then their website can siphon you off to different people in your area, basically different groups in your area. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim.
That would be good to get more, all sorts of people involved more, and local councillors into. It's good. Anne in sunny Oxford, over.
Hi, thanks, Phoenix. So Ray, in Oxford, a group of us from the CEC group have trained as facilitators in Climate Fresk, and because we don't have premises yet, we've been running them in pop-ups. A couple of weeks ago, we were running one with a great group who were very engaged. But two of the people there had said that they had done the climate literacy through work, the workplace. And what they were saying about it sounded as if it could improve on how we deliver the Climate Fresk. And I noticed that Jules has asked the question about the other way around, sort of incorporating Climate Fresk into the Carbon Literacy course. And the Climate Fresk is very good on the science, and there's a lot of depth in that, and it does branch out into biodiversity and a whole lot of other issues. But where it does fall down is really talking about potential solutions, or not the personal action so much, but wanting to have a bit of a positive spin on saying it's not all doom and gloom. There are things that are happening now that, can be done. This will lead into the pledges. And there is a bit more of that. And I'm just wondering, since you're not doing something that's industry specific, so, there were examples if you were working in particular industry, whether it was education or the council, waste disposal people, they could focus on those sort of solutions. But what are you recommending in the way that you're doing it to a more general population? How does that work?
Thanks, Anne. So just so I'm clear, what's the information that you'd like to know is how does it work from a content point of view if we're not channeling it to a specific audience or specific demographic? Yeah, just to touch on Climate Fresk, I think they go hand in hand. I think they're lovely as a whole offering for a CEC to be able to offer, or as an individual trainer to be able to offer. I'm doing my Fresk facilitation train the trainer thing next week, actually, because I want TCA to be able to be Fresk and CLP facilitators. So, and I completely agree with you that the Fresk goes a bit more in depth into the science and the feedback loops, and it really gives you that understanding, but we don't spend a lot of time in the Fresk talking about solutions and feeling very empowered. It's more of like, for me, it was more of like a knowledge absorption. CLP is the other way around. I would say you get a little bit of the science, a bit of basics for the first hour, and then it's very much focused on talking about actions that cause these, and then what we can do about it, and trying to mobilize for action. So what we do with the CLP course that we have, the only way that it's tailored is we do zoom in a little bit on Torbay's overall emissions as a county or as a sub-county, and we talk about the risk. We use climate just map and filter that for Torbay so that we can show the main risks in this area is actually coastal region and river region flooding. You know, so we don't actually use a lot of very Torbay specific information. So we would happily share our course with any other group that wants to use our course as their sort of basic. I think we are an open people can use.
Yeah.
And stick to very generic information. We use I'm trying to think. So climate just, the map that I've mentioned, but we use things that have a very sort of broad and overarching reach. So 52 climate actions resource, the local futures resource, which is an American website, I believe, and just try to keep everything very sort of broad so that it doesn't matter where we are. We could, friends could, you know, if there was a group that wanted to swap out our 4 or 5 slides or our 20-minute conversation that we talk specifically about Torbay with their own demographic, it would still be really useful. The videos that we use, again, are talking very much about carbon emissions relative to climate change rather than anything super localized. And it just so happens that doing some of the key statistics that we share, such as around 40 to 45% of energy emissions coming from domestic usage, is actually the same in the whole of Europe, or it's around 45% in Europe, and the statistic for the UK is 40%. So we're lucky in the sense that the statistics, the UK is quite a similar microcosm of like the wider world when it comes to certain impacts that we talk about. I don't know if that's answering your question, Anne. Does it give you a question?
No, it's excellent. Thank you very much indeed. That's really, really helpful. Thank you.
But please do reach out or maybe ask the Carbon Literacy Project if you can have TCA's course if you wanted to look through it, or I'm happy to share. I'm happy to jump on a call and we could go through the slides together. I know I'm not supposed to share the actual full course. CLP probably wrap my knuckles for that, but I'm more than happy to talk to you about anything that might help get it set up for you guys. Yeah, be great.
Thanks
there was
very much, Ray.
That's good for you, Anne. There was a couple of other websites. I put climatejust in there.org, and then there was another one, 52 Solutions or something, an American one, whether you could post them at some point.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, 52 climate actions, and then Local Futures Action Network, I think it is.
Futures Action Network. Okay, I'll look them up. I think Jules has got a question, or someone can look them up. Local Futures. What was it? Local Futures. What was the end of it?
Local Futures Action Network, I want to say.
Okay, cool. Over to Jules, I think, who had a question.
Well, it's not really a question. It's more sort of an observation that I'm just embarking on developing my own course, and I did have a call with the Carbon Literacy folks today. It just so happens, and then I heard about this call through a group I volunteer with, so I thought, well, I'll jump on and see what's going on. I work for a big university at the moment, and their approach was to just throw everything at the audience and completely sort of overwhelm them, I feel. I think there was about 90 slides. Admittedly, that course wasn't accredited. That was the university's attempt to do it. And I got a 15-minute slot, which was talking about resilience. And then I did an actual accredited course with an organisation called the Art of Sustainability. Well, you couldn't have had more the opposite. I mean, there was the bare minimum of in terms of not, I mean, they did cover all the key points, but it was all around a lot of emphasis on mindfulness, being present, and talking about how we felt about the information. So a completely contrasting approach. And the impression I get is that climate literacy have certain things they insist on having, but other than that, there's quite a lot of room for you to put your own stamp on the course and make it how you want it to be, and particularly keen to focus it in on any particular niche or target market that you want to. When I say market, I mean, I'm trying to develop my own coaching business and include this. So but I'm also working with a local environmental group as well, so sort of looking at it from two different aspects. And I think the other thing they're keen on is this peer-to-peer. So encourage, if you were to go and deliver it to an organization, they really want ownership within the organization. They're encouraging that, and then you have to do this feedback, the form at the end, to say what action you're committing to. But I honestly do feel like the reason we are where we are at the moment is because we've not dealt with the feeling side of things. We've talked a lot about facts. We've been talking about the facts of climate change for many, many years, but we haven't seen the action at the rate that we should have been doing it many years ago. So my approach would be that I want to bring in a lot more of that element and building people's resilience around it, and as you say, trying to, as Anne said, you know, creating hope and a feeling of agency and empowering people. That's really, really important. And yeah, I feel like the human side of this needs to be addressed when that's the approach I'm going to be taking with my course when I get to do it. Anyway, I've waffled on far too long. Thank you.
Thank you, Jules. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think I'm always constantly trying to make the balance between giving people enough concrete information. They've come along to spend their whole day learning this. I want them to go away feeling educated, but alongside a sense of motivation, inspiration, and agency that, as you say, only comes from emotional connection. Like, we don't need any more facts on climate change. The world doesn't need any more facts on climate change. If it was only a lack of facts, then we wouldn't be in this mess. Like you say, it's that realizing that you have a vested interest, that you've got skin in the game, as the communication is like you need to bring it home for people. One thing that works well is that I actually stole an idea from my mentor, and I do this very contracted version of a scientific-based guided meditation. At the start of every session, I make people do this guided meditation about talking about how the hydrogen in us is the same hydrogen that was created in minutes after the Big Bang. Like, we have this ancient element coursing through us, along with all the other elements. Like, there is nothing else that we know of in the known universe. We are all made of the same matter. It's more eloquent than this. And actually, it seems to go down really well. So when I've done a few university lectures and I bit the bullet and I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start off the uni lecture with this, so that they think, flipping heck, who's this bird now? Like, this crazy hippie that's come to do a lecture for 2.5 hours with us. And it always goes down way better than I think it is. I think people are really, even though they're not aware of it, they're hungry for just this sort of sense of connection. And when people come along to something that they think is going to be potentially quite heavy, quite dry, a sense of humor and a sense of lightheartedness, and this evoking this sense of wonder about the natural world, is so important, alongside some of the factual information. So that's such a great tactic, Jules, and let me know what your tricks are and how we can share some different ideas let me know. If you want my astrophysics guided meditation, you're more than welcome to be able to use it.
I've just DM'd you to say I'd love a copy of it. Thank you.
I don't know how I'd even write it down. I'd have to just do it for you. Leave you a voice note and do it, and then you'll have it. But yeah, yeah, wonderful. Phoenix, did you also want to
yeah,
interject? I know we're getting
anyone can stick their hand up for any question or feedback or just a comment or whatever you want to share. But I think I've put the three that you mentioned in there. The last one I found was localfutures.org. I hope that's the Local Futures Action Network, but they seem to have a lot of good things there, and the 52 climate actions I like. I suppose my question or thing is something I've been banging on about for years through. I've been involved with about 7 different waves of the environmental movement, from I suppose the early road protests through to XR and beyond. And particularly for the last 15 years, we've really been talking about the solutions. A lot of our movements always have been talking about the solutions. You know, we talk a lot about the problems, and we're anti-oil and the roads and things, but at the same time, all of these movements were talking about permaculture and solar and the other things. I was just wondering, in the carbon literacy course, do you talk about some of the solutions, or offer people a range of options of what they can do? You mentioned a couple there about, you know, switching your bank and stuff. I think there's so much climate doom out there, and we are bombarded by a lot of really important facts, and we do need to feel it, and we do need to be aware of it, but we also need to give people hope and give them a few options of 3 or 4 or 5 things that you could do. So is there parts of that in the carbon literacy things where you get a range of options or solutions you discuss with people, or get them to brainstorm over?
Yeah, thanks, Phoenix. Absolutely. So the image that's on the screen at the moment, where you can see our last group that are around these cards, as it were, this just as an example, this is a carbon actions ladder that is something that was picked from, I think, Princeton University or something online. I'm good at pilfering things from different groups. And it was basically the highest impact action, the highest impact positive actions that we can have as individuals, all the way through to still positive impacts, but slightly lower, just to give us some perspective. And this is very factual information, so I always caveat it with, you know, it can bring up certain emotions for people, because it talks about, for example, family planning. It talks about living car-free. And these things are like, it talks about eating a plant-based diet. You know, we've got to be really sensitive when we're talking about these. This is just like, this is the facts. And we're not saying to everyone, you need to do all of these, otherwise you're a terrible person, or you should do some of these. I always say to people, if you've already had your children, you can't give one of them back. Like, it's fine. When it says like family planning, consider one for your child. It's like, that's an incredibly privileged position to be in. So it does offer people a bit of perspective about, for example, recycling at home is good, but it's not wholly where it's at. Like, your diet and how many long-haul transatlantic flights, for example, you take in a year, and the sort of car you drive has a much higher overall impact than just recycling at home. We don't want people to just stop there, or to change their light bulbs and think, oh, that's me done. It's like, yeah, that was great, but what else? What's going to scale up your impact? So we play this activity, and then we have a discussion in our course about what is activism. What does activism look like? Because I think activism, the term, scares people. People automatically think of things like XR or Just Stop Oil, which is not everyone's cup of tea. Like, we have to understand that, you know, it's a bit scary. Maybe some people have only just seen the negative press about things. Who knows? So we talk about what is activism, and the fact that asking for information from your supermarket about where they source things is activism. Changing your bank is activism. Talking to your friends and family about these issues is activism. Everybody can be an activist. And this is an area of the course that I really feel excited about, because people, you can almost see people's understanding or awareness or ideas coming to life. It's like, we're not trying to just turn you into a protester. Like, if that's what you want to do and you feel capable of doing, then great. But there's many different ways to be an activist. And then we lead on to giving people time to fill out their personal pledges, which is, the pledge is like, what are you going to do with this information? Like, how are you going to take this forward? And lastly, we ask people to stay in touch with TCA, to become part of the more sort of fun and light touch things that we want to do, and find your people, you know, feel a sense of connection and don't feel like you're alone in all of this. The resources that we share tend to be very upbeat, so like 52 climate actions, the local futures action network, even like Earth Overshoot Day, we share that website, and that is very actions and solutions focused. So yeah, we very much try, but I think we could do more in that area. I think it's a constant evolution process, really, where we need to sense check ourselves all the time and see, are we offering enough time for people to talk? We have a pause moment, for example, where we ask people how they're feeling about things that they've seen, if they want to share anything. So yeah, it's super important.
That's really good. You know, just offering people a whole wide range of options is really, really important. You know, something said in some of the previous campaigns, you know, of activism. You know, activism isn't just the bit where you get arrested and the bit where you're on the front line somewhere. It's the people who drive the vehicles, the people who make the sandwiches, the people who prepare the tea, the people who send out the newsletters and do the social media. It's, you know, anything you can do in a community centre in your community is, you know, is activism of some form or another, and, you know, changing your bank to the rest. There's so many things we can do. All right, folks, we're in the last, you know, five minutes or so. Is there any other questions, feedback, or anything you want to ask about carbon literacy? And the last little bit there. There was a ladder, the Princeton ladder, carbon literacy ladder. I don't know if you can post that at some point, Ray. I couldn't find that. And
I mean, I think it was Princeton University. It's a graph that I have turned into a card game. So it's not even like that, but I can share these assets. Like, the factual information is from Princeton University, I think, and then these assets, they're not trademarked. Like, you can have them. Just get in touch with me and I can send you the visuals. That's fine.
Do you want to put a contact in so that if people want to contact you direct to ask you a bit more? And
yeah, there we go. Let's go back to that slide. Yeah, please, if anything, Jules, I know you said about being interested in like the guided meditation, for example. Please just ping us an email, and if you could write in the subject for Ray or FAO Ray or something that will catch my eye, then you'll probably get a quicker reply, so it doesn't get drowned out by all sorts of different things. But that would be the best way to get in touch with us, absolutely. But yeah, I'd totally here to share my experience with anyone that's starting up CLP, or to hear other people's experiences so that we can make ours better and continuously evolve. And also the link between delivering CLP and FRESC as well, because that's my next 2024 challenge.
Are you chatting to the Climate FRESC people? Because I know that we've done a couple of Zooms very early on, and one more recently with the Climate FRESC guys, and I think they got a bit of funding to go around to different CECs. So that's something you could integrate a bit more. Yeah,
I'm super plugged into that through Totnes. So I'm with the Climate Clarity. They're the folks that have got the funding, right, to be able to deliver to CETs. Climate Clarity, I think that's what they're called, as the FRESC trainers. So yeah, they're who we're putting on. It's Rosie from FRESC that's doing the Train the Trainer stuff next week on the 11th in Totnes.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, yeah, that's fantastic. I'd definitely like to. I mean, I think I've done the basic Climate FRESC training, but it would be fantastic to do carbon literacy. What's the cost, basically? It's different for organisation or an individual?
Yeah. I mean, if you're down our way at all, Phoenix, let me know and we get you on third course with us. Yeah, I don't know. I imagine it ranges from free to like a couple of hundred, depending on who you are. As a community member, it'll be cheaper. It's corporate rate, which makes sense. It's a corporate rate.
A sliding scale is always good, and that different groups and people can afford different things. Okay, folks. Well, there you've heard a lot more about climate literacy. I think You've learned tonight. We learn every night on the CEC webinar. We've got next week. We've got Young Wilders, which is all about rewilding, and a young crew coming in to talk about. How I think they're linked with a lot of different landowners, and they're going out and planting trees and rewilding different areas and places. Was there any other further comment or anything? Anyone who hasn't spoken wants to share anything, or you can put a couple of words in the chat of what you thought about tonight. There's a nice one that we learned from Trust the People. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming, Ray. I will be down that way. I've got to come and help the Weymouth group. They're looking for a building and head along the coast to visit a few places. So it'd be lovely to pop in to see you guys and Totnes. Thanks, everyone. Great session, says Anne. Brilliant. Okay, a few comments popping in there. That's great. All right. Great. Many thanks. Lovely to see you all. And,
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
great
you.
session. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ray, for coming. Keep up the good work at Torbay Climate Action. And I'm sure it'll get busier as it goes along. It takes time for these things, the seeds to grow. Bless.
Thanks, Phoenix. Thank you so much for organising.
All right. I'll stop the video there.